This is Doc Savage, the man of bronze.
Have no fear, the man of bronze is here. Peace will come to all who find Doc Savage. Doc Savage, he's a friend to all mankind, pure of heart and mind.
Welcome to Secret Cavern. What an exciting episode we have this week. We are going to be talking about one of America's first superheroes, Doc Savage. Now, some of you say, who in the world is Doc Savage? I'm going to tell you. Doc Savage, if you can look here, let me see a good picture of him here. Probably right here will be good. This is an artist rendition of Doc Savage there. Doc Savage is a superhero born in 1933, created by Lester Dent, written under the pseudonym Kenneth Robeson. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But Doc Savage doesn't have any superpowers. He has taken his physical ability to the absolute top athletic skill. Master of judo, jiu-jitsu. He's a master detective. He is a surgeon, skilled doctor. He is a skilled scientist, humanitarian, very rich, and just kind of goes around, works out every day. No matter what situation he's in, he has this 2-hour routine that he works out. And he surrounded himself with his 5 top people. I got a little picture here, let's see. So there's a picture that kind of shows you what the top 5 look like. He has a lawyer, he has a master architect, a chemist, an electrician. So these are like his top minds, and they go and kind of go around the world in fighting crime. Now, to talk about Doc Savage and things, we really can't do it justice until we talk about Lester Dent, who really is the creator of Doc Savage. I'm going to tell you how it started out. Lester Dent was born in 1904 in Wyoming. You can imagine Wyoming in 1904, that's literally the Wild West, right? His mom and his dad kind of were worried about his birth, so I think they moved to some family in Missouri where he was born, but then moved back to Wyoming. He grew up in a one-room schoolhouse, right? So imagine all the kids school age go to the one-room schoolhouse. Lunch, they had homemade bread. You got a big slab of homemade bread, and you had usually canned beef. So they got a slab of greasy beef with it, and they drink warm water. That was like their lunch. Crazy. So very different times than nowadays. Lester grew up, and he went to college, and he wanted to be a banker. That's what he went to college for. So he went to be a banker. He's in line getting the application to a banker, and as he's getting the application to apply for the job, he finds out that telegraph operators get paid about $20 to $40 more a month than bankers. So he switches occupation right then, signed up, started working a midnight to 8 a.m. shift at the telegraph office, just typing telegrams. That was like the main method of communication back then. It was there that he ran into Norma Gerling, who he fell in love with. Norma and him became just in love. They got married. Justice of the Peace married him. And of course, they had no money. So what they do for their honeymoon, they went to the movies in the afternoon. And then they were married. They were so poor. Back there, this is about 1925, they had automats. And an automat was like picture a diner, and one cashier's in the middle, and she would go there and exchange your money, give you nickels, because you needed a nickel to put into the machine. And the whole wall around the restaurant, there's little windows. You'd put your nickel in, open the door, take out a piece of pie, put a dime in, take out a sandwich, maybe a cup of coffee, maybe it's a bowl of soup. So they only got 1 or 2 people back there filling all the windows, and the one person, so you'd sit there in this automat, and that's how you would eat. But they always had free hot water. They had free hot water where people could make teas. They had crackers, ketchup, condiments, things like that. So what did Lester and Norma do? They would sit there in that automat, take hot water, add ketchup and salt and pepper, and make a little soup and eat it with crackers. That's how poor they were, that was their meal for the day, was this hot cracker automat food. Well, one day, Lester's at work, and there's one of his workers that's bent over there typing crazy, like he's on his break. And Lester goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, I'm busy. And he goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm writing a story." He goes, "You're writing a story? What, like a Pulp Fiction story?" Because back in the day, that's what pulp novels came out. These are kind of some reprints of what a pulp novel looks like. Cult of the Witch Queen, The Sea People. So they were kind of campy, crazy, outlandish stories of adventure. Look at this one. Captain Hazard, Python Man of the Lost City. You got Weird Tales. So usually it's straight jaw guys shooting their way, rescuing damsels in distress. I actually have a few. I got some more hidden away, but this is an actual dime novel is what they called it. So a dime back there in 1925, 1930 was about $1.75 nowadays. So you're spending on this. They called it pulp because it's made out of this cheap paper, right? So it's not meant to hold up. So really they were just like to read and throw away. So there's like the Phantom Detective, 10 cents. They had a lot of Westerns. This one was a little 15-cent Texas Rangers. And these pulp dime novels were around, 20, 30 years. Quite a while. So the guy says, "I'm writing a Pulp Fiction story." And Lester goes, "Why are you doing that?" And he goes, "Because I got paid $300 for my last one." And Lester's jaw just about dropped. $300, that's what, like over $4,000 today, which was a gold mine. You think back there, 1925, 1928, right before the Great Depression, that was a lot of money. So Lester goes, "I love reading the pulps. I read them all the time. I can write a story." So he started writing. He put out a novel, sent it away, rejection. Wrote another one, sent it away, rejection. These are only like 120 pages. Wrote another story, rejection. Sometimes on a rejection, they'd give him some tips on what to write. So he kind of reformed, did it again. 14 admissions. 13 rejections, but on the 14th, they open up the letter and something falls to the floor. A check for $250. Norma and Lester thought they had struck it rich. Woo! And his first story was called Pirates K. So he started writing and he sold another story. He sold about 3 or 4 stories, and Dell Publishing said, "Hey, we want you to move to New York and write for us. We'll give you $500 a month." They thought they were on cloud 9. This is about 1929. They moved to New York, $500 a month. What is that? That's $5,000, $7,000. I mean, that's a lot of money in today's money. So they were living high on the hog. Back then, you could go to a diner and get like 75 cents, get a pork chop or steak dinner. 20 cents for breakfast would get you a donut, and a cup of coffee, and a piece of fruit. So it's pretty easy to eat out, and that's what they did. They moved to New York. That lasted for about 4 months, and then it kind of fell apart. They moved back to Missouri. He started writing again, moved back to New York. Anyway, he finally was writing enough stories, making a little bit of cash, that a publisher came up to him, and the publisher was writing, said, "The Shadow is the biggest novel out there right now." It had a radio show. It had its own following. Every month came a different pulp adventure of The Shadow, and they're selling like hotcakes. So this publisher said, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's create a superhero." And they were writing under the pseudonym Kenneth Robeson. If you can see here, on most of the Doc Savage books, it says author is Kenneth Robeson, right there on there. It's not a real person. Anybody could write a story. They just published it under that name. Lester wasn't happy about it, but he started writing Doc Savage stories. Pretty soon, he was getting $500 a novel, which went up to $750 a novel. He had written, I think it's about 168 novels. I think Lester Dent wrote at least 130 of those. So all through the Depression, people were struggling. Lester had plenty of money. Why? He was writing Doc Savage novels, making $750. He bought a yacht. They sailed the Caribbean. He was hunting for sunken treasure. He got his electrician license. He got his plumbing license. He never stopped. He was a true adventurer in the sense. 6'2". I think he looked like Doc Savage or one of his men. They traveled around, had a wondrous life writing Doc Savage novels. So Doc Savage novel started out in the Pulp novel, and I wish I had one, but I don't. But here's like a reprint. So a reprint, Doc Savage, you can see. Little, because right around World War II, Doc Savage was all there. Let's see, this is another spicy detective. So right in that era. So in the 30s, 40s, 50s, Doc Savage came out in pulp novels. Then it went to kind of the paperback. Now, Superman came out in 1938, 5 years after Doc Savage. So you think, well, is it copied? Well, let's look. What's Doc Savage's first name? Clark Savage Jr. What's Superman's name? Clark Kent. Superman's known as the Man of Steel. Doc Savage was the Man of Bronze. They both had a Fortress of Solitude up in the north where they went away. In fact, the Doc Savage movie, which this is a puzzle of, came out in 1975. Ron Ely, who starred as Tarzan in the TV series, was Doc Savage. His two female co-stars said, of course we'll be in the movie if Ron Ely takes his shirt off, which Doc Savage always seems to rip his shirt. But everyone loved to see Ron Ely without a shirt because he looked like Doc Savage. So Doc Savage really was one of the first superheroes. Superman, you can't deny how Superman was caught up or kind of doctored a little bit, stole from Doc Savage a little bit. So if you look here, on these novels right here, this is like the first one that he wrote, Doc Savage. Of course, that was the movie poster. All the stories are about that, 120 pages long. Doc Savage usually going to rescue somebody. Somebody's asked for help. Usually the second chapter, they're always looking for it. Doc Savage, again, 6'2", striking figure when he walked into the room. Kind of made a trilling sound in his mind. I like this one here, Brand of the Werewolf. In all the novels, though, the trouble and calamities escalate to where he's end up saving the world almost in every one. It's almost like an apocalypse is happening and Doc Savage has to stop it. But the novels kind of go like this. And this one here, the hate genius, we're in there in the heart of Germany. Monk, who's the chemist, and Doc Savage are stuck in a cell. And the Germans have captured him, and they think it's all lost. Monk is just beside himself, collapses from exhaustion on the cell, sleeps for a couple hours, wakes up and just says, Doc, what are we going to do? And Doc Savage goes, I was just letting you get some rest. We can leave anytime we want. And Monk goes, what? What are you talking about? We're in a cell. How are we supposed to get out of here, Doc? Doc Savage goes and flicks. He's pulling out one of his molars, and he has a fake molar, and he pulls out, and he's got like C4 packed in his molar. Puts it on the lock, blows the lock, and that's how they get out and escape. Doc Savage always has a way out. Always has some kind of inventions. Really doesn't fear anything, but gets out of adventure. So that's what all the novels are kind of like. After these, and there's about, man, I forgot how many there were, maybe 138 of these. They started coming out and reprinting 2 stories at a time. So then you had these. Now, if you've said, I've never even seen these Doc Savage books, probably the late 70s, early 80s when you've stopped seeing them in the shelves. Then they kind of came out with some standalone novels. I think you might be getting some of those. You could get on Amazon. Look, there's Doc and his Fabulous 5 on the back. Here's like Philip Jose Farmer did Escape from Loki, which is kind of a backstory on how he met all of his Fabulous 5 support team. I would travel around for work, and I always would look for a used bookstore wherever I went, because it took me 5 or 6 years to collect the entire Doc Savage collection. The hardest ones to collect, the omnibuses. These are like 5 novels in one. Super hard. So again, I was started collecting before the internet really came around, so there wasn't really eBay back then. And I'd go into a bookstore, and many times I'm dragging my coworkers with me. And I drag my coworkers and I say, hey, I'm kind of looking for Doc Savage novels. Time and time again, the bookstore owners would say, we never get those unless the collector dies. Once they die, usually the family gives us a collection, and then we sell it. So from then on, whenever I dragged one of my coworkers there, and we found a Doc Savage novel, they would make a joke going, looks like somebody died, you're going to get their collection. But on the last one, I did buy it, it finished, it was like Doc Savage number 22 or 23, The Czar of Fear. This is the Phantom City. But I think I paid, I don't know, $40 for it. Don't tell my wife that, but it was a lot. They reprinted. Marvel had these magazines that came out about the same time of the movie in 75. And the artwork is really great in this, if you kind of look. So it's all black and white, kind of told like the Savage Sword of Conan. And they had quite a few of these. Well, when I say quite a few, they had 9 issues. There's one. You see Doc Savage is only on the top. All kinds of almost supernatural-like sometimes. Fighting crazy creations and things. And this, believe it or not, is a reprint of all of those issues which we just talked about. So it's kind of a hardcover, and you can get all of those stories right there. In fact, that's what this is here, which is a paperback edition of the same thing. So probably harder to get. These I think you can pick up for $10 each on Amazon or eBay. Not on Amazon, but eBay has them. Part of Doc Savage, he has a cousin, Pat Savage, who's in quite a few of the stories and novels. And they kind of came out and kind of, look at that, by Kenneth Robson, so you don't know who really wrote it, someone else. And she's kind of starring in a few of her own novels. So the cousin of Doc Savage. They were going to make a movie sequel. In fact, I even have the script. It was called Arch Enemy of Evil. Never went to filming. The movie kind of was a little campy, really didn't take off that well. There have been talks of a Doc Savage movie. The latest one was, man, what's the guy that plays Thor? What's his name again? Chris Hemsworth. So they said Chris Hemsworth is going to play Doc Savage, but I don't know if that went anywhere. Shane Black, famous screenwriter, was going to write him, the screenplay for it. So I'm still looking for it. I still would like it. But Doc Savage, definitely one of America's first superheroes. If you want to try, I mean, you could probably grab a novel or two like this. $10 probably is going to cost you a little bit on eBay, but it's a really quick read. I wish you could get them on Amazon, like the e-reader thing, but you can't on the Kindle. But I haven't seen those. You can get some of these on the Kindle, though. Some of these issues. So that's good for an adventure. So this is what makes Doc Savage so endearing, and I say an American icon. This is the Doc Savage Oath. So this is kind of what he goes by. And I sent this to a coworker once, and they had it framed for me, so I hung this in my office for many years. Doc Savage goes, "Let me strive every moment of my life to make myself better and better, to the best of my abilities, that all may profit by it. Let me think of the right and lend my assistance to those who need it, with no regard of anything but justice. Let me take what comes with a smile without loss of courage. Let me be considerate of my country, my fellow citizens, and my associates in everything I say and do. Let me do right to all and wrong no man." The Doc Savage Oath. So I made this Doc Savage shirt because big fan of Doc Savage. Plus I worked at Comic-Con. Of course, majority of people, no idea what I was even wearing, right? One person came up because on the side of it, you can see it says Hidalgo Trading Company. Well, that's the phony company that Doc Savage sets up, how he moves stuff around the world, how he traveled around the world, his fake business to hide his millions of dollars, I guess, that he gets from Aztec gold. And so a guy goes, "Hidalgo Trading Company, that's awesome. Where'd you get that shirt?" And I go, "Oh, I made it." But that's kind of my dream. I probably make more of these. That would be nice. If you're a fan, you want one, we can make you up one. Doc Savage, Hidalgo Trading Company, send it out. Then you could be a Doc Savage fan too. So that's what I got for you this week. Thank you for watching The Secret Cavern. And again, hey, if you come by and visit, don't touch my stuff. That's the motto. We'll see you next week.